Every person has a secret, but mine was stolen before I even knew it existed, and the stranger who told me the truth disappeared before I could ask a single question. It was a cold Monday morning when I first saw him. I was walking to work with a cup of coffee in my hand. Life felt normal. I had a small apartment, a steady job, and a quiet routine. Nothing exciting ever happened to me. At least, that was what I believed. The man stood outside the train station. He looked older, with gray hair and tired eyes. As I walked past him, he quietly said my name. I stopped. I had never seen him before. He looked straight at me and said, "The people you trust the most have been lying to you for 25 years. Before I could ask what he meant, he placed a small envelope in my hand and walked away into the crowd. When I opened the envelope, I found only one old photograph. It showed a little boy standing beside a woman I had never seen before. On the back of the picture were 5 simple words. "This is your real mother." My hands began to shake. The woman who raised me had always told me my mother died when I was a baby. My father never spoke about her. Whenever I asked questions, they changed the subject. Had they lied to me all my life? That night I could not sleep. I looked at the photograph again and again. The little boy looked exactly like me. The next morning I asked my father about the picture. The moment he saw it, the color disappeared from his face. He quickly gave the photo back and said, "Throw it away. Someone is trying to hurt this family." But he would not look into my eyes. For the first time in my life, I knew he was hiding something. I decided to search for answers on my own. I visited the old town where I had grown up. Many people had moved away, but one elderly neighbor still remembered my family. When I showed her the photograph, she became silent. Then she whispered, "I hoped this day would never come." She invited me inside. With trembling hands, she opened an old wooden box filled with letters and newspaper clippings. She told me that my mother had not died, she had disappeared. Everyone believed she had abandoned me. But not everyone believed the story. The old woman handed me a letter that had never been delivered. It was written by my mother. In the letter, she begged to see me. She wrote that someone had taken me away from her. She promised she would never stop searching. The letter ended with tears that had stained the paper. I felt my whole world breaking apart. If she had searched for me, why had nobody told me? Who had hidden the truth? I returned home and secretly searched through my father's old files. After hours of looking, I found a locked metal box. Inside were legal papers, court documents, and more letters from my mother. None of them had ever reached me. One document changed everything. My father had won full custody after giving false statements in court. Several witnesses had been paid to support his story. My mother had lost everything because of lies. I could hardly breathe. The man I had trusted all my life had stolen my childhood. But one question remained. Why? The answer came from an old bank record. Years before I was born, my mother's family owned valuable land that later became worth millions. If she kept custody of me, I would eventually inherit part of it. Instead, my father gained control of everything after convincing everyone she was unstable. It had never been about love. It had always been about money. For days, I said nothing. I smiled at family dinners. I answered my father's phone calls. I acted exactly as I always had. He believed his secret was safe. He had no idea I was quietly preparing something much bigger. I hired a lawyer. Together we collected every letter, every document, every witness we could find. The elderly neighbor agreed to tell the truth. A retired court clerk admitted that records had disappeared years ago. Even one of the paid witnesses finally confessed before a judge. The case reopened. News spread quickly. My father remained calm in public. He called me ungrateful. He claimed I had been manipulated. But each day new evidence appeared. The lies became impossible to defend. Then something happened that I never expected. My real mother was found living in another city. She had spent 25 years searching for me. She had never stopped celebrating my birthday. Every year she wrote another letter she could never send. When we finally met, neither of us spoke at first. We simply looked at each other. Then she hugged me as if time itself had disappeared. For the first time in my life, I felt something that had always been missing. The court ruled that my father had committed fraud and presented false evidence years ago. Much of the property he had taken was returned. His reputation collapsed. Friends disappeared. Business partners walked away. He lost far more than money. He lost every person who had believed his lies. Months later, he asked to meet me one last time. He looked older than I remembered. He said he had done everything because he feared losing me. I quietly placed my mother's unopened letters on the table between us. Then I asked one question. If you loved me, why did you make sure I could never know her love? He had no answer. I stood up and walked away without looking back. People often think revenge is about making someone suffer. Sometimes it is. But the deepest revenge is something much quieter. It is living the life that someone tried to steal from you. The stranger who handed me that photograph was never seen again. I never learned his name. Maybe he was simply passing through. Maybe he had carried the truth for many years. Or maybe some secrets find their own way into the light when the time is finally right. I still keep that old photograph in a small wooden frame, not because it reminds me of betrayal, but because it reminds me that even the darkest lie cannot hide the truth forever.